Hello, my name is Jiso and I am reading Master Dōgen's Shōbōgenzō, and I'm on chapter 14, Sansuigyo, the Sutra of Mountains and Water. San means mountains, sui means water, rivers and lakes and so on. Sansui suggests natural scenery or nature itself. Kyo or Gyo means Buddhist sutras, so Sansuigyo means mountains and water or nature as Buddhist sutras. Buddhism is basically a religion of belief in the universe, and nature is the universe showing its real form. So to look at nature is to look at the Buddhist truth itself. For this reason, Master Dōgen believed that nature is just Buddhist sutras. In this chapter, he explains the real form of nature, giving particular emphasis to relativity in nature. The mountains and water of the present are the realization of the words of the eternal Buddhas. Both mountains and water abide in place in the Dharma, having realized ultimate virtue. Because they are in the state before the kalpa of emptiness, they are vigorous activity in the present. Because they are the self before the sprouting of creation, they are real liberation. The virtues of the mountains are so high and wide that we always realize moral virtue, which can ride the clouds by relying on the mountains, and we unfailingly liberate the subtle effectiveness which follows the wind by relying on the mountains. Master Kai of Taiyōzan Mountain preaches to the assembly, "The blue mountains are constantly walking. The stone woman bears children by night." Mountains lack none of the virtues with which mountains should be equipped. For this reason, they are constantly abiding in stillness and constantly walking. We must painstakingly learn in practice the virtue of this walking. The walking of mountains must be like the walking of human beings. Therefore, even though it does not look like human walking, do not doubt the walking of mountains. The words preached now by the Buddhist patriarch are already pointing to walking, and this is his attainment of the fundamental. We should pursue to the ultimate his preaching to the assembly about constant walking. It is because the mountains are walking that they are constant. The walking of the blue mountains is swifter than the wind, but human beings in the mountains do not sense it or know it. Being in the mountains describes the opening of flowers in the real world. People out of the mountains never sense it and never know it. People who have no eyes to see the mountains do not sense, do not know, do not see, and do not hear this concrete fact. If we doubt the walking of the mountains, we also do not yet know our own walking. It is not that we do not have our own walking, but we do not yet know and have not yet clarified our own walking. When we know our own walking, then we will surely also know the walking of the blue mountains. The blue mountains are already beyond the sentient and beyond the insentient. The self is already beyond the sentient and beyond the insentient. We cannot doubt the present walking of the blue mountains. Though we do not know how many Dharma worlds we should use as a scale when taking in the blue mountains, we should investigate in detail the walking of the blue mountains as well as our own walking. There should be investigation both of backward steps and of stepping backward. We should investigate the fact that just at the moment before the sprouting of creation and since before the king of emptiness, walking in forward steps and backward steps has never stopped even for an instant. If the walking ceased, the Buddhist patriarchs could not manifest themselves in reality. If there were an end to the walking, the Buddha Dharma could not reach the present day. Forward walking never ceases, and backward walking never ceases. The moment of forward walking does not oppose backward walking, and the moment of backward walking does not oppose forward walking. We call this virtue the mountains flowing, and we call it the flowing mountains. The Blue Mountains master in practice the art of walking, and the East Mountain learns in practice the art of moving on water. Therefore, this learning in practice is the mountains learning in practice. That was right. Therefore, this learning in practice is the mountains learning in practice. The mountains, without changing their body and mind, with their face and eyes of mountains, have been travelling around learning in practice. Never insult them by saying that the Blue Mountains cannot walk, or that the East Mountain cannot move on water. It is because of the grossness of the viewpoint of the vulgar that they doubt the phrase, "the Blue Mountains are walking." It is due to the poorness of their scant experience that they are astonished at the words flowing mountains. Now, not even fully understanding the words flowing water, they are drowned in prejudice and ignorance. This being so, they esteem as defining concepts and esteem as lifeblood their enumeration of the accumulated virtues of mountains. The act of walking exists, the act of flowing exists, and mountains in which mountains give birth to mountain children exist. I'm going to read that sentence again. The act of walking exists, the act of flowing exists, and moments in which mountains give birth to mountain children exist. By virtue of the fact that mountains become Buddhist patriarchs have manifested themselves in reality like this. Though there may be eyes in which grass, trees, soil, stones, fences and walls are realized, that moment is beyond doubt and beyond disturbance. It is not total realization. Though moments are realized in which the mountains are seen to be adorned with the 7 treasures, those moments are not the real refuge. Though visions are realized of the mountains as the area in which Buddhas practice the truth, those visions are not necessarily something to be loved. Though some have got the brains to realize a vision of the mountains as the unthinkable merit of the Buddhas, reality is not merely this. Every realization is an instance of object and subject. We do not esteem such realizations as the Buddhist patriarch's actions in the state of truth. They are one-sided and narrow views. The moving of circumstances and the moving of mind are criticized by the great saint. Explanations of mind and explanations of the nature are not affirmed by the Buddhist patriarchs. Seeing the mind and seeing the nature is the animated activity of non-Buddhists. Staying in words and staying in phrases is not the speech of liberation. There is a state which has got free from states like these. It is expressed, the Blue Mountains are constantly walking, and the East Mountain moves on water. We should master it in detail. In the words, the stone woman bears children by night. Time in which the stone woman bears children is called night. In general, there are male stones and female stones, and there are neither male nor female stones, whose practical function supports the heavens and supports the earth. There are heavenly stones, and there are earthly stones, as the secular say, but few people know. We should know the facts of childbirth. At the time of childbirth, a parent and child are both transformed. How could we learn in practice only that childbirth is realized as the parent becoming the parent of a child? We should learn in practice and should penetrate to the end that the time of the child becoming the child of the parent is the practice and experience of the reality of childbirth. Great Master Unmon Kaioshin says, "The East Mountain moves on water." The point realized in these words is that all mountains are an East Mountain, and every East Mountain moves on water. Thus, mountains such as the 9 mountains of Mount Sumeru have been realized, and they have practiced and experienced. This state is called the East Mountain. Nevertheless, how could Unmon be liberated in the skin, flesh, bones and marrow, the practice and experience and the vigorous activity of the East Mountain? At the present time in the great kingdom of Sung, there is a group of unreliable fellows who have now formed such a crowd that they cannot be beaten by a few real people. They say that the present talk of the East Mountain moving on water and stories such as Nansen's sickle are stories beyond rational understanding. Their idea is as follows. A story which involves images and thoughts is not a Zen story of the Buddhist patriarchs. Stories beyond rational understanding are the stories of the Buddhist patriarchs. This is why we esteem Obaku's use of the stick and Rinzai's shout, which are beyond rational understanding and which do not involve images and thoughts, as the great realization before the sprouting of creation. The reason that the expedient means of many past masters employed tangle-cutting phrases is that these phrases are beyond rational understanding. That's the end of the quote. Those fellows who speak like this have never met a true teacher and have no eyes of learning in practice. They are small dogs who do not deserve to be discussed. For the last 200 or 300 years in the land of Sung, there have been many such demons and shavelings like those in the Band of Six. It is pitiful that the great truth of the Buddhist patriarch is going to ruin. The understanding of these shavelings is inferior even to that of Shravakas of the small vehicle. They are more stupid than non-Buddhists. They are not lay people, they are not monks, they are not human beings, and they are not gods. They are more stupid than animals learning the Buddha's truth. What the shavelings call stories beyond rational understanding are beyond rational understanding only to them. The Buddhist patriarchs are not like that. Even though rational ways are not rationally understood by those shavelings, we should not fail to learn in practice the Buddhist patriarchs' ways of rational understanding. If ultimately there is no rational understanding, the reason which those shavelings have now set forth also cannot hit the target. There are many of this sort in all directions of Sung China, and I have seen and heard them before my own eyes. They are pitiful. They do not know that images and thoughts are words and phrases, and they do not know that words and phrases transcend images and thoughts. When I was in China, I laughed at them, but they had nothing to say for themselves and were just wordless. Their present negation of rational understanding is nothing but a false notion. Who has taught it to them? Though they lack a natural teacher, they have the non-Buddhist view of naturalism. Remember this, the East Mountain moves on water is the bones and marrow of the Buddhist patriarchs. Waters are realized at the foot of the East Mountain. Thereupon mountains ride the clouds and walk through the sky. The crowns of the waters are mountains whose walking upward or downward is always on water. Because the mountain's toes can walk over all kinds of water, making the waters dance, the walking is free in all directions, and practice and experience is not non-existent. Water is neither strong nor weak, neither wet nor dry, neither moving nor still, neither cold nor warm, neither existent nor non-existent, neither delusion nor realization. When it is solid, it is harder than diamond. Who could break it? Melted, it is softer than diluted milk. Who could break it? This being so, it is impossible to doubt the real virtues that water possesses. For the present, we should learn in practice the moments in which it is possible to put on the eyes and look in the 10 directions at water of the 10 directions. This is not learning in practice only of the time when human beings and gods see water. There is learning and practice of water seeing water. Because water practices and experiences water, there is the investigation and practice of water speaking water. We should manifest in reality the path of which self encounters self. We should advance and retreat along the vigorous path on which the external world exhausts in practice the external world, and we should spring free. Thanks for listening.